there, very good evening. You're watching London Live News at 6 with Anthony Baxter. Coming up, beyond evil, the family of Sir David Amess speak out as Ali Harbi Ali is given a whole life sentence for murdering the MP. As the PM and the Chancellor feel the pressure following their Partygate fines, it's the public taking the strain over the cost of living as inflation reaches near record highs. The latest on both of those stories. Plus, we'll have an update on London's weather, staying nice out there over the Easter weekend. And the winner of the World Photography Prize has gone on show at Somerset House. We'll reveal the artists behind the top award and meet some of the other winners. And We Are Family singer Kathy Sledge will be with us on her time in the legendary US group Sister Sledge and plans for a gig in South East London next month. All of that's come before 7. First, though, this evening, the family of Sir David Amess, the veteran Conservative MP who was murdered by an Islamic State fanatic, have described what happened as beyond evil, saying they were sickened to think that the politician would have greeted his killer with a smile of friendship. Sir David was stabbed to death during a constituency surgery in October last year. Well, today, the man behind the attack, 26-year-old Ali Harbi Ali from Kentish Town, was told he would never be released from prison. The self-radicalised university dropout told his trial he'd taken revenge against the MP over his vote for airstrikes on Syria. Well, following the sentence, the Met's Assistant Commissioner, Matt Jukes, gave a statement on behalf of Sir David's family.
Our amazing husband and father has been taken from us in an appalling and violent manner. Nothing will ever compensate for that. We will wake each day and immediately feel our loss. We will struggle through each day for the rest of our lives. Our last thought before sleep will be of David. We will forever shed tears for the man we have lost. We shall never get over this tragedy. It breaks our heart to know that our husband and father would have greeted the murderer with a smile of friendship and would have been anxious to help. How sickening to think what happened next. It is beyond evil.
Assistant Commissioner Matt Jukes there. Well, the former MP and friend of Sir David Amess, Anne Widdecombe, attended today's sentencing. Outside the Old Bailey, she said how much he had enjoyed meeting his constituents.
I don't think David would have wanted this in his name to result in any undue distancing of MPs from their constituents. He was a man who wanted to meet his constituents not only formally in surgeries, but all the time, out on the streets, just meeting them at events, just socialising with them. That's what he wanted, and that is what I think probably every MP, certainly nearly every MP, wants. It's certainly what I wanted when I was an MP. And I don't think we should use this as a reason for distancing. But that is different from saying, of course, that common sense precautions should now be taken.
Reaction there following the sentencing of Ali Harbi Ali. Let's move on. The Prime Minister and the Chancellor have rejected calls to resign after it was confirmed yesterday they had broken the law during lockdown. Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak, as well as the PM's wife, Carrie Johnson, were fined by police. Cabinet members have given their support to the pair. However, opposition MPs are continuing to push for resignations. Sarah Everard's killer Wayne Couzens has chosen a jury trial after being charged with 4 counts of indecent exposure. The alleged flashing incidents are said to have taken place in Kent in January and February last year. He appeared at Westminster Magistrates by video link this afternoon and spoke only to confirm his identity and that his legal team had advised him that the case should be heard at Crown Court. He will next appear at the Old Bailey in May. The daughter of the British US national who remains detained in Iran has staged a demonstration outside the Foreign Office today, calling on the government to bring her father home. At one stage, it was hoped Morad Tabaz would be brought home along with Nazanin Zaharie Ratcliffe and Anousheh Ashouri. However, he wasn't on the flight. His daughter Roxanne says her family was led to believe he was part of the deal negotiated with Tehran.
We want them to follow through on the promise they made to us. We were always led to believe over the last 4+ years that he was to be a part of any deal they were making, and we were led to believe he'd be coming home as a part of that. We've pleaded and begged and been very vocal about wanting them to keep their promise, and it's been 4 weeks. and nothing has changed for us as a family. We don't have direct contact. It's only on speakerphone through my mum with another speakerphone, so we kind of shout across to hopefully be able to at least convey to him that he's not alone and that we're still waiting for him and that we love and miss him.
Well, the Foreign Secretary Liz Truss has previously said she is doing what she can to try and secure the release of Mr Tabaz. Now, the cost of living has reached its highest level in 30 years, with a warning things are likely to get worse. Inflation reached 7% in the 12 months to March. It was sat at 6.2% in February. Let's get reaction. Myron Jobson is Senior Personal Finance Analyst at Interactive Investor and joins us now. Good to see you, Myron. What's behind this latest increase?
Well, I think we all know it's soaring energy and fuel prices, and they were the main drivers for the rise of inflation in March. And also the rising cost of second-hand cars is still a factor, also food and the cost of dining out at restaurants were also factors behind the rise. And, you know, we are just all paying more for everything in reality. And Russia's invasion of Ukraine hasn't helped matters. It's actually having a real pounds and pence impact on our budgets at home in the UK. And because of the conflict, the price of energy, as I said, has just soared because of the reliance on that not just UK, but also European countries have on oil, on Russian oil. And also there's been an increase in the price of things like wheat and oil, you know, normal cooking oil, which is for some food manufacturers to actually rejig their recipes to, you know, to allay that cost.
There was a time when high levels of inflation meant that actually people who had saved money were in to make a bit more cash. Are you getting a sense that kind of banks, building societies are starting to pass that on to customers?
Not really. I mean, savings rates have creeped up when I say very slightly in recent months, and owing to the increase in the Bank of England base rates. There have been 3 increases since December, but savings rates haven't really reflected such an increase, I suppose, unfortunately. And so it's desperate time for savers, I'm afraid. Savings rates still fall far behind the rate of inflation. And you know, one thing I would say is for those who can afford to and have money to have set aside for at least 5 years, it's worth considering investing. It's unfortunately in this environment of the rise in the cost of living, it's the only way in which you can actually make some decent, you know, money over the long term, which can help grow your wealth.
OK, Myron Jobson there, thanks for your time, thanks for your tips this evening. Senior Personal Finance Analyst there from Interactive Investor. As we look at inflation now 7% on the 12 months to March. Let's move on, 1 or 2 other stories this evening. A man who struck up relationships with women in order to carry out abuse on their children has been convicted of a series of sexual offences. Croydon Crown Court heard how 54-year-old Robert Pearce from Bermondsey attacked 6 girls aged between 7 and 16 over a period which spanned almost 20 years. A jury convicted him of 23 offences, including rape and indecent assault. He'll be sentenced in June. Police investigating a number of sexual assaults in Ilford are urging other victims to come forward. There have been reports of at least 5 incidents involving a male approaching women around the Aldeborough Road North. The man has been arrested and charged with 3 counts of sexual assault alleged to have happened between December and February. The incidents were described as highly traumatic for the victims. The job ad to replace Dame Cressida Dick as the Met Commissioner has gone live. Applications open today to become Britain's most senior police officer. Candidates are asked how they will make the force demonstrably more professional. Dame Cressida left last week after a series of scandals and losing the confidence of the mayor. And Andy Warhol's pop art print of the Queen and the famous Armada portrait of Elizabeth I are to go on show together for a special Jubilee exhibition. The display at Sotheby's will include 7 queens in total from Tudor times to present day. It will run from the end of next month until the middle of June. The main platinum celebrations taking place across a 4-day bank holiday weekend at the start of June, something a lot of people looking forward to. We've got Easter to get through first, and let's just take a look at the weather. Well, temperatures could dip down to single figures overnight, around 9 degrees in central London, perhaps a bit cooler than that on the outskirts. Bouncing back quickly tomorrow, though, with sunshine, a bit of light cloud around, highs of 20, possibly 21 Celsius, so no real change for the next few days into the long Easter weekend. It looks like this burst of warm, settled weather will continue. It could be pretty nice out there. Staying with the theme of Easter, just before the break, take a look at this. Effie the gorilla caught red-handed. Here she is, the animals of London Zoo, showing us how to get stuck into an Easter egg hunt as we head towards the weekend. Not the kind of treats that we'll be looking for, I'm imagining. The gorillas here enjoying vegetable-filled Easter piñatas. Penelope and Miko the meerkats, though, taking a more delicate approach to their treats. They get us every time, don't they, London Zoo? Right, still to come this evening. Are you ready for retirement? If the answer is yes, you might have to think again, as a new poll suggests most Londoners don't appear to be saving anywhere near enough. Financial expert Sue Hayward with us to crunch the numbers next. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. welcome back. Let's take a look at one or two other headlines this evening. Officials are continuing to investigate the cause of a number of cases of hepatitis among children across the UK. Since the start of the year, there's been more than 70 reported incidents, most of them in England. The UK Health Security Agency says parents should be on the lookout for symptoms like jaundice, loss of appetite and dark urine. One thought is the illness is being caused by a virus. Experts also looking into whether or not there could be a link to COVID. Tesco says it will rein in prices after it reported profits trebled last year. The supermarket made a pre-tax gain of just over £2 billion. That is up from 636 million in 2020. However, the firm, the UK's largest supermarket, warned that it still faced significant uncertainties around supply costs and that it would have to invest to keep prices down. And in what may have been a slightly unexpected move, a judge has told climate change protesters who held demonstrations on the M25 that he had been inspired by their speeches. The group, part of Insulate Britain, blocked traffic on the motorway in Kent in September last year. Some of the demonstrators appeared at Crawley magistrates yesterday, having pleaded guilty to charges including criminal damage and willful destruction. Well, the district judge fined them, adding that his role was to apply the law, despite feeling confident that he perhaps supported them. Now, 12 months on from the murder of Sarah Everard, a new poll suggests more than a third of Londoners don't believe our streets are safe for women and girls. The survey by the girls' rights charity Plan International UK also shows that 3/4 of us think sexual harassment in public is common. Well, Georgina Laming is from the charity and joins us now. Georgina, let's just take a look at the survey results in a little bit more detail. From what stands out here, it certainly feels like people aren't safe, but perhaps actually having to change their behaviours and habits because of this.
Absolutely. So 40% of respondents said that they're changing their behaviour in some ways. That might be taking a different route home, not exercising outside in kind of public parks and spaces. It might be not getting transport at night. It's really worrying that people have to change their behaviour all to avoid something that shouldn't happen in the first place, that should be something that doesn't exist at all. Yeah, I mean, the horrific circumstances around what happened to Sarah Everard shocked the nation, really. And at the time, there was a commitment, certainly from politicians, to try and change that. This survey would suggest that, regardless of what they might have done, the perception of not feeling safe is still there. Yeah, and I don't think it's just a perception. I think if we want to change the record on the issue of public sexual harassment, then we're going to need whole-scale kind of society-wide change. And so it's been 9 months since the government's Violence Against Women and Girls strategy came out, and they promised to look at the law. Because right now, if you're a girl walking down the street and a man corners you and says something really sexually explicit to you, you're not covered by the law. You can go and report that, but there's nothing that police can do about it. That person can't be prosecuted. And so the fact that we're 9 months on from that and still nothing's happened shows that we need more action on this.
So things like catcalling, for example, that would fall within this realm of public sexual harassment that women can do nothing about.
Yes, exactly. And I guess like catcalling makes it sometimes feel like it's just a laugh, but actually you're imagining this is girls in their school uniform walking home from school, having really horrible things said to them by strangers. That's what catcalling is. So yeah, that's what we need to cover in this law, because, that's part of why people are avoiding exercise, avoiding walking home from school, those kind of pieces of kind of safety work that women are having to do just in their day-to-day lives.
What would you like then to see MPs, local authorities perhaps doing to address some of these issues? I imagine you're saying to MPs, bang on to the government and let's get things moving.
Yeah, absolutely. So we would love it if politicians were supporting our call. But I think also what's really essential for politicians to do is to sit and listen to victims and survivors, hear their experiences, understand why this is so much of an issue, and then start making the case for change. And in local authorities, raising that awareness that this isn't okay, that this isn't a behaviour that people tolerate, and taking action. In Hackney, you'll see that there are lots of kind of advertising campaigns around public sexual harassment and how it's not acceptable. And we'd love to see that in local authorities across the country.
We know that public confidence in the Met Police is not necessarily where it should be. Do you feel like the change at the top, which we are witnessing and going through at the moment, could actually result in women and girls feeling safer because they can trust the police more?
I think that it's about the individual cases for girls, and the way in which we'll restore trust in the police is that when a girl goes and reports an incident, it's taken seriously and it's actually against the law and something happens about it. Right now, if you go and report something, say a man following you home from school, there's nothing the police can do about that. And so I think it's about the law restoring trust in the police so that individual incidents are dealt with properly.
Yeah, the best place then for people to find out more about the campaigns that you're pushing for, head to your website, I imagine?
Yeah, so plan-uk.org, or go search for the Crime Not Compliment campaign.
OK, Georgina Laming there from the charity Plan International UK. Details of that survey which suggests girls and women not feeling safe 12 months on from the murder of Sarah Everard. Now, for those thinking about retirement, here is perhaps a lesson for you. Only 21% of Londoners in the so-called class of 2022, those wanting to give up work this year, feel confident that they've saved enough. This finding has come from a report looking at the state of affairs for those retiring now. Nationally, it shows 66% of us feel that we've got perhaps to continue working in some way even after we've received our golden clock. The TV presenter and personal finance expert Sue Hayward gave us more details a short time ago.
The report from Aberdeen showed that basically 2 in 3 of the retirees from what they call the class of 2022 who are looking to retire this year are looking for a more flexible form of retirement. So that could be, instead of the old days of, packing up your desk on a Friday at 5 o'clock and, thinking, right, retirement starts on a Monday. Some of them are either working part-time, some are doing voluntary work, some are starting a new business. In some cases, this is for financial reasons. In 1 in 3 cases, it's because people actually need that extra income. They can't afford to retire and rely on the state pension. But in another 1 in 3 cases, it's because people actually want something to do. They like the sort of social side of work, the emotional side. And I would imagine with so many of us over the pandemic, having had more time on our own as well, it's made a lot of people actually rethink their whole retirement plans and think, what do we actually want? Do we want to get out and about and prolong our working life and earn some more cash while we're doing it?
Yeah, for those who've perhaps had that kind of experience over the last 2 years of not being able to do as much as they want, that idea of retirement might not have looked as glossy. For those who would love to do nothing and perhaps spend all day in the garden and not work another day in their life, but they've not saved enough, are they facing even trickier times because of what we're seeing when it comes to the cost of living?
That's very much the case. I mean, the research showed that 1 in 5 people are actually saying that they will rely solely on the state pension in their retirement, which, as many of us know, it's not a huge amount. I mean, we heard the news this week that the increase in the state pension is 3.1%, which is less than half the rate of the inflation, which went up this morning, 7%. So when you think of relying on the state pension, around £140 to £180 a week, depending on which version you're on, it's not a huge amount of money. And certainly in the current climate, with the cost of living increases, like energy bills, supermarket prices going up, prices at the pump going up, it's something people really need to think about their retirement, and what they're going to do in their twilight years, especially if they do have plans. And a lot of the people from the class of 2022 said they do want to travel, they want to spend time with family, they don't just want to spend time at home or necessarily in their own back garden.
I imagine you get asked this question quite a lot, and I imagine there's no easy answer to it, but how much are we having to put away to be able to live that dream life when we get to 65, 70, of being able to do those cruises and a comfortable lifestyle?
I mean, there's no sort of one-size-fits-all figure, simply because, obviously, your idea of a cruise and mine, I might be going to the budget version and you might be wanting to go on the 5-star, all singing, all dancing 6-month version. So there's no one-size-fits-all, but as a very rough guide, when people take out a pension for the first time, the usual sort of number crunching is that think of how old you are, halve that and express it as a percentage of your salary. So if, let's say, you're paying into a pension for the first time at age 20, you should be putting 10% of your income away. Whereas if you do nothing about it till age 50, you're looking at around 25%. So that in itself kind of shows you that the older you get, the more money you need to be putting aside. And of course, the older you get, you may have other financial commitments, like family commitments, a bigger mortgage, kids going to university, which is why in an ideal world, it's always best to plan retirement from a younger age.
The personal finance expert Sue Haywood there on what we should be doing if we're thinking of retiring. You're watching London Live News with Anthony Baxter. A reminder of the top story coming up after the break. Plus, in hindsight, should we have been more receptive to the life lessons on offer from our school teachers? We'll be hearing from the Londoners who say they perhaps should have been more grateful. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. further, welcome back. Let's remind you of the main story this evening. The family of Sir David Amess, the veteran Conservative MP who was murdered by an Islamic State fanatic, have described what happened as beyond evil, saying they were sickened to think that the politician would have greeted his killer with a smile of friendship. Sir David was stabbed to death during a constituency surgery in October last year. Well, today the man behind the attack, 26-year-old Ali Harbi Ali from Kentish Town, was told he would never be released from prison. The self-radicalised university dropout told his trial he'd taken revenge against the MP over his vote for airstrikes on Syria. Well, following the sentence, the Met's Assistant Commissioner, Matt Jukes, gave a statement on behalf of Sir David's family.
Our amazing husband and father has been taken from us in an appalling and violent manner. Nothing will ever compensate for that. We will wake each day and immediately feel our loss. We will struggle through each day for the rest of our lives. Our last thought before sleep will be of David. We will forever shed tears for the man we have lost. We shall never get over this tragedy. It breaks our heart to know that our husband and father would have greeted the murderer with a smile of friendship and would have been anxious to help. How sickening to think what happened next. It is beyond evil. Our thanks go to the police, in particular the 2 officers assigned to the family during this dreadful time. Our thanks also to the legal team who worked so tirelessly to ensure that justice was done.
Assistant Commissioner Matt Jukes there. Well, the former MP and friend of Sir David Amess, Anne Widdecombe, attended today's sentencing. Outside the Old Bailey, she said how much he had enjoyed meeting his constituents.
I don't think David would have wanted this in his name to result in any undue distancing of MPs from their constituents. He was a man who wanted to meet his constituents not only formally in surgeries, but all the time, out on the streets, just meeting them at events, just socialising with them. That's what he wanted. And that is what I think probably every MP, certainly nearly every MP, wants. It's certainly what I wanted when I was an MP. And I don't think we should use this as a reason for distancing. But that is different from saying, of course, that common sense precaution should now be taken.
Now, half of adults in London wish they'd express more gratitude towards their teachers for the impact they've had on their lives. More than 2 in 5 adults in the capital say their former teachers gave them life lessons well beyond what went on in the classroom. Let's just take a listen to some of them.
I think I learned a lot of life lessons from secondary school. They sort of taught us how to not give up. Even if you want to give up, you have to carry on trying.
Looking back, I wish I did express more gratitude because every teacher can help you. They're all working to benefit you.
Mr. Redford, he always used to seem to be on my case, but I now realise it's because he believed I could do better, and it's thanks to him that I've progressed outside of school.
We all remember that one teacher, don't we, that had that impact. Well, we've spoken to Emmanuel, an assistant head at Eastbury Community School in East London. He says he doesn't expect young people to show gratitude.
I certainly remember the teachers that had a massive impact on myself. I often reference them when I'm talking to other educators and also when I'm talking to children. And it's also informed the kind of teacher that I wanted to be and that I'm trying to be. So I do think, children show gratitude to their teachers. Maybe we could do it more. Maybe that's just a practice that we could do generally as people. But I don't have any regrets. I do feel that the teachers who had a massive impact on myself and had a massive influence on me, I hope they knew. But certainly if I had an opportunity to go back and say to them in their face, this is the impact you've had on me, I think, one, that would be lovely for them, but it would also be nice to be able to do that. So I'm sure there's many people that would like to do that as well.
For you, how is it being on the other side of the classroom? Because every teacher can relate to being a student, but students maybe don't often consider how it is to be a teacher.
Yeah, they don't consider that, and I don't think they should do. I guess as children, they come into school and they're just expecting to be taught something, and they understand their rights, which I think is quite important. But I think in terms of their gratitude, I feel it personally, and I do feel that teachers do feel the gratitude of the students as well as the parents and the families involved. You get that from everyday interactions, but you also get that from experiences where maybe a child that you've taught a number of years ago, you might come across them in the street and they're now like a foot taller with a deeper voice, and they can remember lessons that you've taught in the past. So I do feel like there is a sense of gratitude amongst our young people. I don't think they'll ever understand, but I think that's more of a child and adult dynamic as opposed to them not really being appreciative of their teachers.
What's it like seeing past students again and hearing, how you've impacted them?
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. I honestly, it's one of those things you take for granted. I think you go into work every single day, and I don't think you realize the impact that you have on tens, sometimes hundreds of children, in the space of your career. And so I think seeing them when they're now adults, when they're teenagers, they've graduated from uni or from college, whatever it is, I think that's just a reminder that the work that we do is very fulfilling, very rewarding, and very impactful.
Trying to get more people into teaching, do you think knowing the impact that you can have on young people would encourage more people to move towards a career in teaching?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I think the reason why most teachers get into teaching is because they recognize that they can make a difference in the lives of young people, in their families, in their communities. And so I think, people that are considering getting into teaching, one of the main things that they should always know is that you are doing probably the most rewarding job, because you literally are developing and creating the next generation of leaders, doctors, artists, whoever it might be. So that impact certainly should be acknowledged by potential teachers.
What would you say to someone considering a career in teaching?
What would I say? I would say, one, it is probably the most fulfilling and rewarding job that there is. I couldn't lie to them and say that it is easy, but I don't think anything worth doing is easy. Yes, there is an issue and a topic of workload that comes up quite a lot, but there are practical ways of managing that. I can testify to that. I can support with that if that's what people need help with. But also, in terms of just career prospects, if it's something that you want to do with senior leadership, for instance, insight, if you want to become a CEO of an academy one day, those things are all achievable. They are obtainable. I always say, the level of work that you put into what you want to do, having a vision, all of those things make your dreams possible. So it's definitely a job worth considering, I would say, not just for the impact, but for the career prospects.
How long have you been a teacher, and what was your sort of journey into getting into teaching?
So I've been a qualified teacher for 7 years now, but I've been in education for about a decade. I started off initially as a sports coach after uni, and then I became a teaching assistant. And I think that was when I recognized that actually education is where I was meant to be. That was my purpose, to support and help children through education. So I then went through the process of becoming a qualified teacher. I sought after schools where I could support children who are disadvantaged in some ways, whether it's through poverty, but mainly through special educational needs, children that have been excluded from schools. And so I spent 5 years in a special school supporting those children and those families. And now I'm currently an assistant head teacher in an East London school. Doing the same type of work, just in a different type of setting. So yeah, really pleased to be able to do that.
Emmanuel there, speaking to Alicia, and you can find out more details on the Get Into Teaching website. You're watching London Live News, still to come before 7. The sister sledge that broke free. Kathy Sledge will be with us as she heads to the O2. We'll be chatting time with the legendary We Are Family US band. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather. And know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. Hello there, welcome back to the final part of tonight's show. It's one of the top photography prizes of the year. Some would argue the industry's Oscars. And this year's top accolade for the Sony World Photography Awards has gone to the acclaimed Australian artist Adam Ferguson for a series of black and white portraits capturing people trying to cross the Mexico-US border. Well, the winners were announced at Somerset House yesterday with the photos on display from today, and we were there.
The Sony World Photography Awards are something people can enter from all over the world. We have a huge exhibition, 300 images, amazing Ed Bertinsky show as well, and it's a big variety of photography. We have several different sections, a professional section. Professional photographers from anywhere can enter stories. We're looking for a narrative structure and a body of work. And there is the Open Award, which is a single image. You can put your best single image in, it stands a chance of winning. There are student awards, where students from universities, if they win, their university gets $30,000 worth of equipment, and youth awards, youth programs. So the WPO, the World Photography Organization, works closely with Sony to push photography across the world and improve its quality and reach. So we go from architecture to wildlife, documentary, portraiture, landscape, creative, sport, a broad range of subjects, and anyone can enter them, and it is free to enter. What I look for when judging and choosing the winners, there's no such thing as a perfect picture, but I look for integrity, depth, thoughtfulness, With the individual winner of the horse by Scott, that's a very powerful, dynamic, classic image. I mean, it really is a beyond a poster image, and it's fabulous because of that.
The win is this horse here, which is a wild Mustang stallion, sort of pounding the dust in northwest Colorado. He's part of a herd that lives in an area called Sandwash Basin, where sort of wild Mustangs still roam free and wild. These Mustangs are amazingly hardy animals. It's like minus 30 degrees in the winter, up to 100 degrees burning heat in the summer. This is one of those situations. So he's basically near a watering hole. That line across his body has just been submerged in mud, and they basically try and cake themselves in mud to stop the flies from getting in the heat. And now he's pounding the ground to get to really cut the line and get to the front of the line for water at the watering hole. So it's a stallion just really showing his testosterone, if you like. We moved to Colorado in 2016. As you can imagine, that was a landscape photographer's dream. You've got the Rocky Mountains and everything. But then 1 year after moving, I was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer. And obviously life stops for a while. And as we went through just embracing what was happening, understanding that the treatment I was going through, I was told I had to avoid sunshine completely. So I started to shoot wildlife from the shade of my car, just driving through state parks and things. And from there I was introduced to the wild horses and just fell in love with them. And as a photographer who enjoys wildlife, the dynamism, the energy, the interactions, the different behaviors you get from these animals is just fantastic. So it really was a kind of wildlife photographer's dream. Just visiting the exhibition, there's just so much. I mean, this is obviously my photo, but there's an amazingly powerful array of photographers, very powerful political statements from a lot. So I would encourage people just to come in and appreciate the messaging that's going on here.
To aspiring photographers and those who want to become more well known and to really move up, enter. But pressing the button is the last thing you do. It's the production beforehand. It's the thought of what you want to say, why you want to say it, where you want to say it, how your photography is developed, what technique works for you, and then enter. Because yes, 350,000 people enter, but if you win, it can change your life. And just by being seen at a show like this, even if you haven't won, gives you the confidence to believe in what you're doing. And once you do that, then you can make it.
You can see the Sony World Photography Awards exhibition at Somerset House now. Finally this evening, the sounds of the Grammy-nominated group Sister Sledge will be filling part of the O2 next month as one of the family returns to the capital. Kathy Sledge was the voice behind the US band's biggest hit, We Are Family, which has remained a timeless global classic. Well, Kathy told James about what she was preparing for the East London audience in May and what life was like during the height of the group's fame.
The last time I was there, we sold out, and it feels pretty good now. So I love the fact that since then, though, I've been producing live concerts and shows, and it's very exciting with film footage and the choreography and singing all the songs the way we know and love them. So it's really, I'm hyped. Definitely hyped.
Well, tell us a little bit about what audiences see when they come and see you then. Is it a mix of those old greats, Lost in Music and We Are Family and all of that, as well as your sort of solo stuff from your later career?
There's no way I can leave the stage without singing the hits that we all know and love. I would get killed. And it's funny because when I go to other art, like colleagues' show, like Chaka Khan's, like, if she did not sing Sweet Thing, I think I would be very upset. So songs like Thinking of You, and of course We Are Family and Lost in Music, and He's the Greatest Dancer, definitely. And what I love most, and the feedback that I've heard most is that I make sure it's exactly like the record. People don't realize that I sang those songs when I was 16 years old. Yeah. And what's crazy is I was never allowed to hear them until it was time to record them. So that was pretty wild. I think that has a lot to do with the spontaneity to this day. Yeah. And it always kind of resurfaces. Right here in the United States, we're having a whole new resurface of Thinking of You. Like they never heard it before until this year. So yeah, that's what we'll get. We'll get everything we expect.
You mentioned you starting when you were 16, being thrust into the spotlight in the early 70s with your sisters. Tell us a little bit about what that was like back in those days and how you remember all of that.
I never felt, thrust is a good word. I didn't realize I was really pretty much thrusted into it until now. But yeah, you know, I think because I love singing and performing so much that I never felt like, I honestly felt like I was doing something, being able to perform in a passion and sing, and music has always been a passion. So it was never like work to me.
Yeah.
You know, it always felt special. I was literally in middle school when I first started, and I would, you know, come home and get on the bus and go to school, and then go over to your country and do these massive concerts.
Yeah.
So it always felt really special. It was always a challenge, I think, working together as sisters, because even though we are family, I think the challenges do come in with the dynamics. And, you know, I'm sure people know the story sometimes, but at the end of the day, I'm really, really excited to be performing and singing the songs the way we know and love them.
Are you still just as agile on stage as you were then? Because what a lot of people know who remember you guys back then, you guys were kind of the first sort of all-female group to do a lot of dancing and singing at the time. The likes of the Spice Girls, TLC, they've got a lot to thank you for.
You know, that is so huge that you say that, because in producing these live concerts now, I make sure that the people in the audience see that. So yes, I definitely, yeah, there's a lot of staging and blocking and choreography. And yes, Mr. Sledge, we were the first girl band to ever dance full on, like you just said. And people don't realize that. Before us, it was like gowns and the Supremes and the 3 Degrees. And, you know, I can't even imagine myself in a gown. But what I've done, honestly, is I've made it much more relevant, as well as, because I feel like the songs never went away and the relevance of the songs are still there. So I make sure that whatever I do up there on stage is very relevant to what we're seeing and where we are right now. So yeah, there's definitely an edge. Like I had the choreographer, for instance, in some of the songs, make sure that the moves are exactly close to what we did. And in some of the songs, like Lost in Music, I have a huge screen of the original sisters, and it's very exciting. So the choreography is very relevant, but at the same time, it's influenced by what we brought to the feast.
Yeah. Do you still love it just as much as you did when you were a teenager?
Yes, I do. You know, and then at this place where I am now, I'm getting to do it in a way that I have so much more creative influence and creative input in what I do. And so, yeah, I think that, you know, I've always been a huge fan of Queens, of Freddie Mercury, actually.
Yeah.
And I love the fact he was never inhibited on stage, and they always open. They open with their hugest number. So I learned from that. I was like, you know what? We're opening with one of our biggest songs, because I think if you start up here, it just keeps going up. And I think the excitement of being able to sing these hits and add to the performance of the excitement and the choreography, and it just is like the perfect storm. It all works.
Yeah, I was going to say, I can imagine at a Kathy Sledge concert, it's a pretty rowdy crowd at times, particularly when those big hits come out.
Yeah, it's a part of it, though. I mean, I can't imagine us not going crazy with We Are Family. You know?
Yeah.
And I make sure that I sing it because just as a concert goer, sometimes myself, I hate to go to a concert and they sing the song completely different. So I love it when people even sing the ad lib along with me. You know, that to me, that's like a real high. It's epic when people know all the ad libs to these songs. And I think you got to do it that way.
Yeah.
So I don't really deviate too much from what we know and love.
Your music is so timeless, but you were real trailblazers when you guys first started out. Do you sometimes pinch yourself about the legacy that you've had in your career and how far it's going? Because I go to, you know, clubs and bars around the corner from me in London, and you'll hear Lost in Music coming on with a little sort of remix from a DJ, and it's like, you know, your music's going to live on for a long time to come. Whereas a lot of people are very famous. in the time they're in, but their music kind of doesn't keep going. Yours does. How does that sit with you?
I remember like following Nile Rodgers, you know, of course, who wrote the song. I was like the 16-year-old goofy teenager with braces, and I would ask him, do you think they were even going to play our records once they're out? And we laugh about that to this day, because no, I had no idea that they'd be able to just have the longevity that they've had, along with being a legacy. I'm like, that when people tell me that, I'm like, wow, I don't feel like that, but thank you. You know, you're just working hard. You love what you do. And I think if you concentrate on doing great music and doing great performances, I'm a huge stickler for making sure there's integrity in the performance and in the show. And so that means a lot to me. So I'm not really concentrating on the legacy part. I just keep having fun.
Kathy from Sister Sledge will be at the Indigo at the O2 on the 14th of May. Final check on the weather for you. Temperatures could dip down to single figures overnight, around about 9 degrees. The low in central London by first thing tomorrow. Bouncing back though quickly with some sunshine and light cloud. Highs of 20, possibly 21 Celsius. No change really for Friday at the moment. It looks like this burst of warmer, settled weather will take us nicely through the long Easter weekend. That's all from the news team. We'll be back tomorrow at 6. From me, enjoy the rest of your evening.